a few months ago, I knew of 4 big companies that were doing $250 million raises for TaoFlow, etc. All of them had died. All of them. And I don't know how Stillcore is doing with their cap raise at the moment. But again, the sentiment for raising for DATs, all that sort of stuff has just died. And so we need someone to try and step up to the plate to try and get big money to convert into TaoFlow. But every single one is different. Every single one. There's no like cookie cutter type thing. But personally, my preferred way is something like 20% OTC. So the team has some cash flow to pay bills and runway, and then 80% on market buying, because that way it benefits everyone. It helps them get their emissions up, the price up, blah, blah, blah. And it helps the alpha holders as well within that subnet. So I don't like subnets or companies chasing like fast early revenue at the detriment to their mission, if that makes sense. Because if you have a subnet that has a lofty goal, etc., and a goal which, let's say, could change the world, if they were too obsessed with revenue too early on, they are being suboptimal in their pursuit of their mission. So it means that they're going to have to shoehorn some bullshit product just to get revenue, just to satisfy eyeballs and attention. Whereas that effort could be really spooled up into achieving their mission.
Welcome to the Ventura Labs podcast. Today, we're joined by Siam Kidd, the founder of DSV Fund, and now Chief Strategy Officer of Astrid Intelligence. In this conversation, we cover why benevolent dictatorships remain the best governance model for young networks, how TaoFlow is forcing short-termism in subnets, the full Astrid PLC fiat to TAO engine and its liquidity sync treasury, why most subnet teams are terrible at marketing, and brutally honest opinions on the state of the ecosystem. Now, back to Siam with the 74th Ventura Labs podcast.
Okay, Siam Kidd, this is your second appearance on podcast. How are you doing today?
Yeah, good. Great to be back. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And since you were last on, I think TAO price is either down or flat at best. Yesterday, or 2 days ago, I watched a video of you saying you had to pay back $400,000 because you are absolutely max long on TAO.
Yeah, it was the worst like timing of a debt repayment ever. Like, yeah, it's just nuts. Like I genuinely thought by November, December 2025 we would be a lot higher. So yeah, especially like a month ago, we're like 500 odd TAO. So yeah, I had to like pay out double the amount of TAO just as in liquidate, just to pay back the debt. But hey ho.
Yeah, well, you're max long. That's what happens, I guess.
Yeah.
So let me just paint the picture. Where are we in this cycle? Like, what is your thesis on Bittensor? Where's your conviction at still?
Oh, that's a big question. So I don't really look at things in cycle terms, like, because there's a guy called John Howell, who's the guy that runs Border Cap, Cross Border Cap, and he's like the world's best, literally the world's best guy at liquidity in the macro sense. And I've been a follower of him for years, and he's always said that the world runs on a 5 to 6 year global liquidity cycle, because most debt, when you look at the biggest quantum of debt, most debt is on 5 to 6 year terms. And then I think Raoul Powell picked up on this, etc., and he talks about this a fair bit as well. But basically, so the world moves in 5 to 6 year cycles, and it just so happens that, or coincidentally or uncoincidentally, I don't know, that the Bitcoin 4-year fractal cycle happened to just be bang on, like at the same time. But if you have something moving at 5 to 6 year epochs and something moving at, let's say, 4, eventually it's going to slowly phase out like this, to the point where at some point it'll be completely opposite to each other. And I think this is the last, let's call it, predictable cycle, easily predictable cycle for Bitcoin, in my opinion. but let's go back to the macro type stuff. Like there's 97% more debt on the planet than actual currency, and so like we have a 100% mathematical probability here that all of the world's CBs have to just print. They have to keep on issuing debt just to roll it over. So if you look at the US debt crisis, they've got something like 10 trillion, just under $10 trillion that they have to refi. And the largest chunk of that is towards back end of 2025 up to like March 2026. And so every time we see global calamities or credit crunches or something like that, it's the world's inability to roll over debt. That's all it is. And when one big country cannot refi a chunk of debt, that has domino effects. So, but yeah. And I think recently with everything smashing down over the last sort of 2 weeks, I think that's just coordinated FUD. So you have JP Morgan coordinating with the MSCI to go, hey, all these DATs, they're not operating companies, they're investment companies, trying to get them delisted from, the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, etc. Meanwhile, JP Morgan is gobbling up Bitcoin. I mean, Jamie Dimon does that all the time. He's done it for years. And we don't get clarity over the DAT, operating company, investment company thing till 15th of Jan. And then when you put that alongside with the US government shutdown, where literally all spending stops, it was just, all risk on assets fell, the dollar strengthened. So of course, everything will fall against the dollar when the dollar's retracing like that. And then, you had all these, levered traders getting absolutely torn to pieces with being wicked out.
What do you think is the end game of all these nation states inflating their currency at the same time?
They'd have no real end game. Like the way I personally look at a country is that it's a company in the limit. So it is, you should look at any country like a limited company, and the managing director is the president or the prime minister, etc. They are not the controlling person of that country. They have directives and policies created and then force-fed down, and they are the implementers. So if I have a business, a limited company, and I put a managing director in, like the MD doesn't really control things. They are the enforcers. And so all global policies are done by NGO think tanks, etc., and the World Economic Forum and all that sort of stuff. That's where all the big policies come down from. And BlackRock is up there as well. So like if you look at ESG, environmental social governance, that was created by BlackRock. And it just so happened that BlackRock had a shit ton of investments and companies that were very ESG benefiting. So then they just force down the ESG narrative into every country that the WEF has its sort of paws in. And then lo and behold, we're moving into a world of carbon credit, carbon tracing and stuff like that, and digital IDs that will link to your carbon footprint. And, like the WEF and the West are looking over at modern day China going, oh, I like what you've done with your social credit score, and etc. And they're slowly working their way over here. So, I've sort of gone off on one there.
Yeah, no, it's all applicable. Bittensor covers everything,
Yeah.
You think we see those social credit score systems in the West?
100%.
What's your timeline on that?
Like, and this is the thing that keeps me up at night. Like seriously, I don't have the timeline. It feels like the UK is like a test bed for all of this bollocks at the moment, because we're being forced this digital ID. So our current administration is forcing this down on us. And I've been trying to resist, but if you're a company director, you have to have this digital ID that's linked into our thing called Companies House. So I've been forced into it unwillingly, so I've got my 11-digit code now. But and when you look at what the UK government are quietly doing trials on, there are universities, government-backed studies where they're trying to link a centralized digital ID to carbon tracking, etc. So, if you, based on your purchases, because eventually the DigiID will be linked into your bank account, etc. And if it looks like you've been driving too far or too much or eating too much beef, you'll hit your carbon limit, and then you just won't be allowed. I hope it doesn't happen. Personally, I hope it's all thrown away in the wash. But whenever you have a bi-party control structure, like it's just two hands of the same shitty body. In the US, you have the Democrats and the Republicans.
Republicans.
Republicans, but it's just two hands of the same body. Over here, we've got Labour and the Tories and the Conservatives. It's just two hands. So, like, what you need is a completely another hand from another body coming in to disrupt the show. So I'm holding out, but whether it's 5 or 10 years, I think it's going to happen. Unfortunately.
You're highlighting an important point here. I think that governance itself is very tricky, and there's a lot of things involved, a lot of moving parts. A lot of people, especially with the TaoFlow update, have been very critical about Bittensor's governance. What is your opinion on Bittensor's current state of governance?
I've been an avid learner of governance ever since I got into crypto properly in like 2016. And I've really gone down the rabbit hole of governance because for all of human history, like 99.999% of the time, it's always been a dictatorial or autocratic form of governance. You have a monarchy or a dictator. What they say goes, right? If you don't like it, you die. You get executed. And democracy is a really new invention. Like, realistically, we've only had 200 years of exploring democracy. But like with any form of governance, you have lots of different shades of democracy. What we have at the moment is fake democracy. We have crony capitalism. We have nepotism at all of the levels. Every country is corrupt, but is on a different scale. So when you look at the lower socioeconomic countries or the developing countries, corruption is more obvious because it's more low level. It's like, hey, you can bribe police people, etc. It's much lower levels. But the more sophisticated a country and the higher developed the country you go, the corruption is very well masked and it's at the highest levels. And so when you look at falling nations as well, they sort of contract into their core thing. So if you look at the Roman Empire, the Romans, when they collapsed, they basically massively imploded and then solidified into what we now know as the Vatican. Like the Vatican is like the last semblance of the Roman Empire with Catholicism. Let's say when you look at the implosion and the rapid compression of the British Empire. What do? We consolidated all of our knowledge and power into accounting. Like Britain is literally the world's leading, let's say, expert at financial avoidance and tax. Like there's more accountants per capita in the UK than any other country. And then eventually, the US, when that implodes in 10, 20 years, etc., I reckon it will just turn into like a massive VC company of some sort. So governance is really interesting. And like we know from a theoretical standpoint, socialism and communism makes sense, but it's one of those bullshit theories that never works in reality. Like find any proper socialistic or communist country, and you hear all these woke idiots go, oh, but if you ask them, hey, okay, do you want to move to Cuba right now or China or North Korea or, they'll be like, no. So democracy is good by theory, but going back to Bittensor, well, actually, in my opinion, the best form of governance is a benign or benevolent dictator. So you need someone that's really good at the helm, that loves its people, its country, or its ecosystem, etc. And it's like I've said this a few times, it's like a parent-child relationship. So I've got 2 kids, they're 7 and 9. I am the benevolent dictator. What I say or what my wife and I says goes. And you need that, and we have our best interests for our kids. But they're now 7 and 9, so there are things that we've slowly given them more independence and responsibility. As they turn into teenagers, whether we like it or not, they're going to separate, and we'll lose control of that. So Bittensor, I think, is in a parent-child situation. It's not a decentralized AI platform. It's not even an AI platform. It's an incentive protocol. A permissionless incentive protocol. Now, the permissionless part is, again, I put that in parentheses, and and thankfully, we have our glorious leader in the form of Const. Const is the benevolent dictator, and I don't say that in a bad way. I say that in a great way. Like, no one loves Bittensor more than Const. No one. And I like to think I like it the second most. Like, I don't know anyone that's more all in Bittensor than me. But yeah, Const is Const is slowly releasing control of it. So that's where I see Bittensor. It's a decentralizing permissionless incentive protocol.
And what are the steps of that progression you see? Like, what are the milestones? Would you consider dTAO being one of those milestones to becoming more and more independent from this benevolent dictator?
Yeah, for sure. Like, dTAO created this open market where people can vote with their money. Now, there's been lots of backlash and hoo-ha about, dTAO is flawed, blah blah blah, and it just adds extra vectors, or not attack vectors, but different. There's different. Yeah, they're just different vectors at the moment. So, like, a lot of people, I think, misquote me because Mark and I run revenue search, etc., and they think we're obsessed with revenue, and to an extent we are, but I think a lot of people don't understand the context. So I don't like subnets or companies chasing fast early revenue at the detriment to their mission, if that makes sense. Because if you have a subnet that has a lofty goal, etc., and a goal which, let's say, could change the world, if they were too obsessed with revenue too early on, they are being suboptimal in their pursuit of their mission. So it means that they're going to have to shoehorn some bullshit product just to get revenue, just to satisfy eyeballs and attention. Whereas that effort could be really spooled up into achieving their mission. So, have you interviewed Sam Dare, the Covenant owner?
Templar, yeah.
Templar, yeah, Grail, Basilica, all that sort of stuff. So, he is the epitome of a subnet owner that is like doing this towards revenue, and that's quite right, because what he's building with Covenant is something that could literally change the world. Like, Templar really realistically has an opportunity to, or the potential at least, to punch OpenAI in the face. Like, the moment Templar can run a distributed training model at the same parameter size as OpenAI, the floodgates are open. There's nothing OpenAI can do to catch up with that, because in order to have a bigger param model, etc., they've got to, knock down a whole bunch of forests just to create another data center, etc. Whereas a distributed permissionless way to do training is vast. Like, Bitcoin is the biggest supercomputer on the planet, and it doesn't own any GPUs or ASICs. And so, yeah, and I think IOTA has a good chance of doing something like that as well. So, yeah, Sam should not focus on revenue at all. Or, if we take another research subnet like Metanova, like Michaela, the work she's doing is literally world changing. So she should stick to mission, and she is sticking to mission. But yeah, that's just my thoughts. So I've seen a lot of people on Telegram sort of misquote me and stuff like that, and yeah, everyone, we need a product market fit, but not at the detriment of the bigger picture.
And last time you were on, you basically laid out almost your entire investment criteria, like step by step. This was pre-TaoFlow. How has TaoFlow changed how you evaluate subnets moving forward?
Massively. The way I evaluate stuff now is it's not completely different. I still have a big old list of things that I look for, but net TAO inflow does what it says on the tin. Like if a subnet is not achieving positive net TAO inflow, they're going to go down the ladder and therefore lose emissions. Now, I think the key distinction here is that even if a subnet gets to 0% emissions, alpha out is not affected. So the miners, valleys, and owner emissions are not affected at all. It's just that the rate at which your pool is growing will just freeze up. So there's no emissions coming into your pool. So that's one thing. I've seen some incorrect things on like subnet summary and whatnot. And so net TAO inflow is actually forcing subnets, in my opinion, I think it's forcing subnets to be more short-term thinking, which to me was a surprising move, because it really hurts a lot of research subnets. And it's just forcing, I think, from what I see, I've probably, out of the 128 subnets, I've probably spoken to about 100 subnet owners. And it is forcing a lot of subnet owners to temporarily be more short-term focused, just to do, appease net TAO inflow. They're going to have to shoehorn some product to get revenue in quickly, just so they just don't go down. And a lot of the research subnets, some of them are quite lucky because Const will back them until they're ready. So Const has enough firepower to back, Metanova or Templar or Covenant, let's just say, for the next couple of years whilst they hit mission. But a lot of other subnets don't have that, fond spotlight, so to speak. So they're going to have to do things to, yeah.
You and DSV have become a lot more involved in the subnet scene. I think your most recent one is 127 Astrid. You guys are creating $100 million DAT is the goal there. So I guess just lay out the vision for what Astrid's going to be and how you're going to do that.
So this is the bit where I'm actually shit scared to talk about, because I'm now, like, I went from not having anything to do with 127 to, like, in the space of 5 days, launching the subnet, being a director of a PLC and a board member of Astrid PLC. All in the space of 5 days. And I was like, holy shit, this is weird. And now, because of that situation, I can literally go to jail for saying the wrong thing. I could go to jail for insider trading. I think the thing I was told is that you can't say anything that would influence the price up or down of the share price of the PLC. But then there's this gray area. So does that mean I can't talk about alpha, like 127 alpha? Because indirectly, if the alpha price goes up, that should, in theory. So this is where I'm going to have, like, I love just lifting up my skirt and sharing everything. That's my default stance. But I have to be slightly cautious of what I say there. So and again, the key thing is that Astrid Intelligence PLC is an operating company, not an investment company. So that's why I'm CSO, Chief Strategy Officer, and not CIO, because it doesn't do investments. It's an operating tech company, and it's and the subnet is the tech part of it all. And with the liquidity sync, the meta hash style liquidity sync that we're building, and again, we're continuing on with the good work that Leo did with Sigma Arena, with basically ridges for financial trading algos. And more, I guess, yeah. And so we can't use things like we're not a hedge fund, we're not a VC fund, it's all that sort of stuff. So, like, I guess to be as vague as possible, there's 3 elements really. So we have this. Well, let's backtrack a little bit. At the moment, individual PLCs are struggling to raise money in the cap market, in the capital markets. Subnets on their own can't raise money for toffee, not proper money. And especially if you're a DAT, you definitely can't raise money because there is a DAT bubble that is bursting at the moment. Just look at strategy; it's minus 50%, and every other DAT is just doing this, especially with the whole operating company, investment company type thing. However, the thing that the financial engineering thing that no one has really explored yet is an operating company PLC that owns a subnet, and then all of a sudden you can unlock a whole bunch of capital raising. Because you can take the emissions that the subnet makes, and that is treated as revenue, and you can times that by 12, so the forward-looking revenue of that. And then if you have this alpha treasury, you can use the value of that on the balance sheet to also raise a multiple of that. So and I guess the proof in the pudding is that in the first 5 days of Astrid Axis launching, we managed to raise more money in 5 days than DSV has done in 10 months, which I think is impressive. And what we hope to do in January, February time is raise 20 to 30 million pounds, not dollars, pounds. So that will be interesting. So we've got this mechanism that can raise a lot of money. And my sole goal, like always, is convert TradFi fiat into TaoFlow. No one's freaking doing that at the moment. And like 4 months ago, a few months ago, I knew of 4 big companies that were doing $250 million raises for TaoFlow, etc. All of them have died. All of them. And I don't know how Stillcore is doing with their cap raise at the moment, but again, the sentiment for raising for DATs, all that sort of stuff has just died. And so we need someone to try and step up to the plate to try and get big money to convert into TaoFlow. And for months, I was hoping that one of the big 4 would come through, but there's one that had something like $80 million dollars earmarked and pre-approved, etc., and then it just died. It did 0. So when I saw all of this happening, I was like, shit, there must be something we can do. So we're trying to step up. We're trying to be someone that can convert fiat into TaoFlow, because that helps everyone. And then when we got all that TaoFlow, we need to sprinkle it across the subnets. So Axis isn't doing any investment decisions, etc. At the moment, it's all done by DSV. Axis just piggybacks. And then eventually, when Leo can get these trading algos span up, etc., we can then let those algos do the allocation. But yeah, we've been running for a week, maybe 2 weeks, and we've done 10 deals so far. We haven't shouted about them at the moment, but yeah.
Okay, couple questions here. How did it feel when you raised more money in 10 days than you did in 5 days than you did in 10 months? What was your first reaction to that?
Oh, holy shit, we've got a lot of TaoFlow to play with. So first of all, converting it into TaoFlow, I was like, yes. And then, and now we have so DSV, like I love DSV obviously, but it's always struggled raising proper capital. Like, I think we only raised like $4.5 million so far in 10 months, and now it's trickling down. We're probably only raising $100,000 to $200,000 a month. And that doesn't move any needles at all. So we've always been in a state where we're deal flow positive, capital like lacking. We've had more deals than capital. Now it's the other way around with Axis. We've got more capital than deal flow, which is why we've been able to do about 10 deals in the opening week or so. But yeah, it's good. Like and if we can hit our internal metrics, we can then go and do this pony show in January, February, and go, look, we had X amount of TaoFlow in the opening month. We deployed it. The floating paper positions on that chunk of TaoFlow is now 2x, 3x, etc. And then we can raise lovely multiples of that. So yeah, there's lots I want to say, but I can't just yet say.
Okay, and then a couple more questions on this. I guess I don't know what you can answer and can't answer. So if you can't answer, just say you can't answer.
Yeah.
What is the plan to go from the 5.5 to the $100 million target?
It's literally creating as much paper value within the PLC as possible, because you can just raise a multiple of that. So, for example, let's just get my trusty calculator up. If you, so the 18% owner key emissions, every subnet gets 1296 alpha per day. So times that by 365, that's 473k alpha per year, roughly. Now, some, not all, some of the deals we've done, a bit of OTC, a bit of, a chunky on market buying sort of allocation. And then if certain targets are hit, we get a percentage of the owner key. So let's just say 10%. We never like to take, a pound of flesh. We always like to be a small investor, but it aligns us with the subnet long term. But let's just say Axis owned 10% of a subnet for a period of time. So times that by 0.1, that means there's 47,000 alpha of coming at Axis's way. With me so far? Now, let's just say
you're saying buy 10% of the owner key, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So imagine just one deal, and we've got 10% of the owner key coming every month or every quarter, etc. Over a year, that's 47,000 alpha. Now, let's just say, the price of that is 0.02. So you then times that by 0.02. What that means is that every year, just having that 10% stream, that's 946 TAO, roughly. We can then use that and go, okay, well, that's 946 TAO over a year. I mean, put it this way, we could do a deal like that, and we could be 1 or 2 months in, but when we're doing the cap raise, we can say, look, you can forward it by 12 months or 18 months worth of contracted revenue, so to speak, and it allows us to just raise more. And then when we have the digital alpha treasury, again, you can raise on a multiple of that. And when you're looking at the APY of all of the subnets, it's crazy. Over a 2-year period, you can, like, thumb in the air, like, it's going to double over the amount of alpha in your treasury will double over a 2-3 year period. And so, yeah, hopefully we've created this sort of money glitch. I'm hoping. Again, no one's experimenting with this financial engineering, and we're just giving it a go. But yeah, we are injective.
Another question I had on this was the actual miner validator dynamics. Where does the subnet itself come into play in all of this?
Yeah, so there's 2 parts of the miner side. So first of all, we have the digital alpha treasury. So we want to have the world's biggest alpha treasury. So the and MetaHash Subnet 73 came up with this lovely sort of liquidity sync type idea. But and I've said to Marius that it just hasn't been executed that well, because what happened with MetaHash is that are you familiar with the liquidity sync concept?
I don't really know what MetaHash does.
Oh, okay. So, let's. I'll talk about what we're going to do. So we have this DAT, or Digital Alpha Treasury, and what we're going to do is we're going to turn it into a liquidity sync. So let's say you come along and you've got a bunch of alpha in, I don't know, let's say Ridges, but let's say you need to cash out, and because you've got bills to pay, etc. But you love Ridges and you don't want to hurt the chart. And a lot of miners and validators in this position as well. So if you're mining Ridges and you're earning lots of money, you don't want to sell it because it hurts the chart. So what we'd like you to do is go, hey, you come to our DAT, our liquidity sync, and go, hey, I'll give you $10,000 worth of Ridges alpha, which is then locked up by smart contract for 27 months. And then you will temporarily be a miner for us. Now, there'll be a UI, a fancy UI. So every single subnet will have a percentage discount, etc. So let's just say, for all intents and purposes, in this situation, there's a 10% discount. So you you lock up $10,000 worth of Ridges alpha It's locked up for 27 months. And then let's say it's 10% allocated to ridges. You'll then be you're then a miner, and you'll be emitted $9,000 worth of our own alpha, and then you can dump our alpha. There's no lockup with you. So you get your $9,000 of Axis alpha, and then you can dump it if you want. So that's one way you can be a miner. And then we've got the whole Sigma arena stuff. So the ridges for trading algos. So miners will be creating trading algorithms.
Okay. On the alpha lockup is miner side. Say I come to you with $10,000 worth of alpha, lock it in the smart contract. You then distribute $9,000 worth of alpha in your subnet to me.
You.
Does this happen over the course of the lockup period?
No, so the lockup is nothing to do with you. It's just to show the community that anything you put in our DAT, we can't touch it. It's just locked up for 27 months. And that alpha, so the ridges alpha you've deposited is ours now, and your alpha is the alpha that you've been emitted. So, and and obviously it depends on how much alpha you're locking up and how long it takes for you to get that. But yeah,
that's kind of what I'm trying to ask, I guess, is how long will it take for that $9,000 in your alpha to actually come back to the miner that locked up the other?
I guess we're limited really, because 7,200 times 0.41. So every day there's only 2,952 alpha being emitted to miners. So if you're the only miner, the only person doing this, then you get all of the mining emissions until you're compensated. But if there's so I guess that's the max, 2,952 alpha worth of mining emissions per day. Now, if the price of Axis is a lot higher, it means that we can pay a lot more people a lot quicker, if that makes sense. So
the inverse would also be true then. If the price is a lot lower, it would take a lot longer to pay back.
Correct. Yeah.
Would that create this kind of slippery slope to where if the price goes too low, then it takes too long to pay back, then people don't contribute alpha? And then obviously the other side's true too. The higher it goes, the faster people contribute, the faster you can pay them back, the faster you can grow the treasury.
The more sell side on our alpha, yeah.
Yeah. So how do you navigate that balance?
So one of the benefits of having this PLC is that we can, we're raising a lot of money very fast. So there is there will be a let's say, well, I'm going to be careful what I can and can't say here.
Okay.
Long story short, with the operations we're doing, when we sprinkle the TAO into all of the subnets, there will be profit. So the subnet will go up in price, and we'll be able to slowly phase out of a position without hurting the chart, because I'm allergic to spiky charts. I just don't like them. And then we'll be left with the principal back and profit, and then the profit's just going to be used for alpha buybacks. So, but yeah, it's going to be interesting. And I think it'll help, because the better we do, the more that the more that we could absorb into the alpha treasury, and it means that miners across the board don't have to just dump on subnets. They can just dump on our subnet. So
you recently had on Frank Rizzo for third DAT strategy. They're very similar. Yeah. What would you highlight as the differences? Is it just that you guys operate as a subnet to do this?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I love Greg. Greg is a top guy. I love using Rizzo as the validator because he uses proper infrastructure. And so it's very similar. But what's happening is that, so in my opinion, I think, of course I'm going to say this, but I think the way that we've done it is better. And by the way, I say this, and I hope he does really well, because if he knocks it out of the park, that's mega for everyone. But he's using a NASDAQ listed entity to effectively be that liquidity sink. So he's getting subnet owners to lock up their alpha, and then those subnet owners get that PLC, that NASDAQ listed shares. But there's a vesting program with that. Those subnet owners, whatever they lock up in this NASDAQ listed thing, they're not going to be liquid for a while, because they'll get these shares and then they can only sell a certain amount. And like with us, they've got to be very careful that there isn't just sell side on their NASDAQ listed entity, because all these subnet owners will obviously sell their stock whenever they can. So they need to make sure that there's an adequate buy side, as in people buying into this DAT. But one of the things I said to Greg is that it's really hard raising money if you're just a DAT, which is what this is. So I hope he can raise a lot of money, because this NASDAQ listed thing is, I think, it's going to be hard. So that's the main difference. And so the reason that we have to be a subnet is because it helps raise more capital. Because like when you look at subnets all have this sort of umbilical cord of financial helping, i.e. emissions, miner, valleys, owner emissions. It's like this, and Bittensor nurtures a subnet with all of these three umbilical cords of money, so to speak. But I was thinking, like, where is the umbilical cord for Bittensor? It doesn't exist. And that's what I want access to be. I want access to be the financial umbilical cord for Bittensor. So Bittensor as a whole has something feeding it money.
And not to harp on Astrid too much, but in Mark's post about it, there was, he used the term operational returns from Astrid will be put back into the alpha token.
Yeah.
What would be the actual operating returns if the company is the subnet?
So we'll have a lot of TAO to deploy, or we have a lot of TAO to deploy. And let's say we put 3,000 TAO into a subnet. I'm just going to pick a random subnet, video. Okay. So let's say subnet 85, we put 3,000 TAO into video, and we'll deploy that 3,000 TAO, let's say on market over months. After, 2 or 3 months, that chart is going to look really freaking sweet when it has, 2,000-3,000 TAO of periodic buying going into it, to the point where, in fact, rewind a little bit. Let's take video, for example. Let's say if we do like a 20% of OTC, so we get a nice chunky bit, a chunk of alpha at relatively low prices, and then 80% of the deal can be used for on-market buying. Over 2, 3, 4 months, hopefully, in theory, the chart will be looking a lot better. It should be, let's say, 2x higher than what it was. So what this means is that that initial OTC element is wildly in profit. Now, obviously, because we've been buying at market, every little cohort or every buy will be in different P&Ls, so to speak. But there is always a part where so we're going off of the premise that the sum of subnets and the amount of new fresh capital coming into Bittensor is going to increase and continue. So at the moment, everything's a bit of a zero-sum game and everything's hyper-rotational. With Axis, we are literally the only injective subnet in Bittensor, and we're going to be bringing in I hope to be bringing in tens of millions of pounds into this. So the sum of subnets and the average alpha prices should go up. And so over time, and also if a chart, like, money is attracted to positive charts and nice consistent growth charts. So there's always organic buy pressure coming in. So over 2, 3, 4, 5 months, we can slowly scale out of a position without hurting the chart. And then we'll end up with our principal and some profit. And the profit, we just go into our own alpha buybacks.
Another subnet that DSV has said they worked closely with, I'm not sure the extent of the relationship, but you're here so you can clarify it.
Yeah.
Lead Poet 71. What is that relationship dynamic?
I love Lead Poet. Lead Poet, like a parent, you can't say you have favorite subnets, but I'll say this openly. Lead Poet is my favorite subnet. Probably shouldn't say that, but it's like this was our first like properly incubated subnet. So we realized that like DSV is a hedge fund. It starts off going like, hey, we get money, we raise money, allocate it, and then we realize actually that there's more profit and there's more net positive energy going into Bittensor if you can actually help good subnets launch on Bittensor. And so we were chatting with Gavin and Pranav for 3, maybe 4 months before they launched, and we're helping them get their ducks in a row. And those two are solid. They're absolutely solid. And Gavin is probably one of the smartest subnet owners I've met, even though he's new to the space. He's been behind the scenes for a fair while. And they've got a product which, if it works, and I think it will help every subnet. Because really good lead generation is the holy grail of all businesses, because all businesses need sales. How do you get sales? You need good leads. So
he has been working for a while. I met him at Endgame.
Yeah, he was at Endgame, and yeah. So I'm naturally attracted to all the marketing and type subnets. So
you said you properly incubated them. What does that entail?
We obviously helping them. Well, in their case, they didn't need too much navigation around Bittensor because they were already deep in it. They're on testnet for a while, and they know a lot of stuff. In fact, Gavin knows more about the inner workings of Bittensor than I do. But we bought the slots, we helped fund them, we gave them like $50,000 worth of like initial OPEX. We've given them more since then. We've given them lots of on-market buying to help get their emissions going. And we've got like 10% ownership of Lead Poet. So, and yeah, we are aligned for the long term.
So you guys DSV were able to buy the slot because y'all got the a great deal on one. So
I don't know. It was really messy. And again, things went so fast. Like once Lead Poet said we're ready to go, we were like, okay, we need to find a slot. So we reached out to, I don't know, 5 or 6 slots that were about to be deregistered. And I think it was Cora. Yeah, it was Cora before it was Lead Poet. And we reached out to them, but then there were like 2 middlemen. Like we never actually spoke to the actual Cora owner. So the Cora owner had a middleman, and then another middleman was in between, and we were only dealing with like the second middleman. And then we got front run to hell. It was ridiculous. So and I was annoyed because I didn't have much, like we didn't have like much Lead Poet alpha, and nor did Gavin or Pranav. But there were loose lips somewhere, because in that whole chain of middlemen and the Cora owner, I don't even know who the Cora owners were or what that team was. But the moment we went, yep, deal, like I was like, sweet. And then I think someone said, have you checked out the chart? I was like, no. And it was like these green dildos. I was like, mother. Like, yeah. So someone, leaked that.
And then outside of 127.71, you guys do a bunch of OTC deals. Do you have any other formalized relationships in the ecosystem with subnets?
What do you mean by formalized?
You and the subnet owner are on some sort of agreement for that percentage of the owner key, or there's other like deals similar to that?
Yeah, there are a few. I think Lead Poet is the only one that we've announced, and they're happy to announce that. The others, I'm not quite sure, so I won't say who in case they're. But yeah, there's a few other where we've got like 5% or 10%, etc. We don't take big chunks. I know that there are some in fact, we speak to a lot of subnet owners, and there are many subnets out there where there's someone else that owns 20 to 50% of the subnet, and the team is not happy because they're doing all the work, etc. And so, and I think this is why Const did that tweet about Yuma, because apparently some Yuma contracts were quite egregious, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, we've avoided that. And also, it's not a lot of them are not in perpetuity. So normally it's like, hey, you can have like 7.5% of owner key emissions for the first 12 months or something like that. So, but yeah,
And
and
those,
every deal is different. We've done. If I'm looking left, it's because I got a big whiteboard here. It's my second brain, my RAM. Over the last, DSV only started doing OTCs in June. No, post proof of talk. Holy shit. So Score was our very first OTC deal. And that was after proof of talk. So that was like June, July. And since then, we've done probably 30 deals now. But every single one is different. Every single one. There's no like cookie cutter type thing. But personally, my preferred way is something like 20% OTC. So the team has some cash flow to pay bills and runway. And then 80% on market buying, because that way it benefits everyone. It helps them get their emissions up, the price up, blah, blah, blah. And it helps the alpha holders as well within that subnet. So,
what would you say is like the main selling point to these teams of working with you? Or is it more so teams approaching you, they're like, hey, we just want some cash?
I guess you'd have to ask them. Like, I always lift up my skirt. We're very transparent. Everything we say we do, we do. I've never broken a contract in my life. I'm not going to start that now. And I used to do all sorts of I used to do mergers and acquisitions a lot, with distressed businesses and stuff like that. And I've never broken a contract. So maybe it's that. And also like at every deal, I always try like you have the win-win-win, but you also have the happy, happy, happy. And sometimes I've found that you can find a win-win-win deal, but the people are not happy. And it's not the same thing. Win-win-win and happy, happy, happy. So as in both parties are happy, but also the alpha holders are happy. And normally there's 3 or 4 elements to a company. And so for me, I like to do I like the happy, happy, happy outcome. And so if you take and I always look at things from a first principles perspective. So obviously, if you have a line, the magic wand outcome for a subnet owner is unlimited money, 0% ownership, like a premium, not even a discount, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And then our magic ideal outcome is 100% discount, only 100% owner key emissions, like being ridiculous. And so that happy, happy, happy is somewhere in the middle. And then we're just like, right, tell us what you want. And then we just work around what they want. Yeah. And there's we've done like 30 odd deals, but there's probably a good 10, 15 that we haven't made a deal because we just couldn't find the happy, happy, happy place. So we're like, just be friends. And what is annoying is that more recently, we've had people sort of using us to get written offers, and then they go and shop around, which is, yeah. So
that one must be annoying. You guys have also been putting on in-person events. A recent one was Crypto AI Day in London. So what is, the thinking behind putting on these events? Why do you do it? And how are these events structured?
So for the last 13 years, I've held a physical event every quarter. So, for the last 2 years, I mean, Bittensor doesn't know it, but for the last 2 years, I've been holding a Bittensor event every 3 months. And anyone in my community, they've been seeing me harking on about Bittensor for 2 years solid now. But I figured I wanted to get more. I wanted to exacerbate's the wrong word, but I wanted to increase the amount of fresh eyeballs and fresh capital onto Bittensor. So the actual end goal is in September next year, I want to hold a massive event in Austin, Texas next year.
It's a good location.
So the thing that we did in November this year was like a small testing ground. So unfortunately, we had the room that was already booked out a year in advance. So we were capped to 150 people. And so that was all we could do with that room. And if you've seen some of the releases, all I've done is that I made it a content packed day. So it was like from 10 a.m. till late. And the thing I like about, well, the thing I've noticed with crypto and all these events, that most crypto events are shockingly shit. They are multi-stage things. They have a massive exhibition thing. You have multiple breakout rooms, etc. So the average participant to one of these events, they're just like meandering around. They'll probably go to one Q&A panel. The Q&A panels are generally shit as well. Like, like for example, I wasn't impressed at all with many of the proof of talk speeches and stuff like that. And so, and you have all these sponsors, and then it's pay to speak basically type stuff. They never say it's pay to speak, but it's like, yeah, you can have a 20-minute speaking slot, but it's a $50,000 sponsorship thing, and then you go sorry, and then all of a sudden you don't get a speaking slot. It's funny how that works. So after, I've run events for a long time, and I found that the best events are when you have a single stage, no breakout rooms, no other breakout panel things. You have one stage, and not even an exhibition area. That way, because no one likes to be sold to. So you have, and that way you can curate the mental learning journey someone has with you for that day. So in November, or a couple of weeks ago when we held this event, the morning started off with trying to orange pill people. So talking about, why an increasing M2 means that you're always getting poorer to the tune of 15% per year, and that the financial Noah's Ark is Bitcoin. Like, you can't sell Bittensor until you really orange pill someone, in my opinion. I mean, there's different ways about it. And then we went into future trends and AI. And then for most of the day, it was just showcasing all of the subnet owners. So, and we did have a Q&A panel and whatnot, but throughout the whole day, like the audience was there, rammed, and you got their attention for a whole day, and what they're going to walk away with, like what knowledge or new information. And then obviously the social element, we partied afterwards and stuff like that. So Austin next year will be a 2-day event. I'd like to get, we had like 6 subnets presenting, and that was too much. Like, it was a rammed day in terms of scheduling. So maybe over a 2-day event, we have 10 subnets. And what we did was that I tried to get really easy to understand ones, like good, but also easy to understand. So Hippias, Video, Ridges, Resi's not that easy to understand, but Zeus was there. That's easier to understand. Lead Poet's easy to understand. And we had a lot of new eyeballs. So hopefully we've got more money going into Bittensor now. That's it. It's a loss-making event. It's like 30 grand, 35 grand just to run that small event. Austin's going to be a lot more. Yeah.
So you call it a loss-leading event. Why do you put them on then? You said you've been putting on events for 13 years every quarter? That's like some next level dedication to events. What made you start wanting to put on events every quarter?
I've got no friends. It's so sad. Literally, my whole friend base is my realistic trader community. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't have a good reason for that, really, because the realistic trader as a business isn't profitable. It's it's just a cool community of like-minded individuals. Yeah. That's a really good question. Why do I keep burning all this money? I don't know. I should probably have a little look into that.
Hopefully I'm not talking you out of these events. I was just curious.
Yeah.
Another person on your team is Leo. He's described as the super smart technical lead. So what is his role with you guys?
So he is our, can I say CTO? Yeah, he's our CTO. So he's got a team of like 6 devs. So he's our CTO, and he's going to continue doing the trading algorithm competitions.
Okay. As your CTO, he is also described as an advisor to Sunday Bar. Is there any relationship between you guys and Sunday Bar, or is that just him personally?
No, that's him. So there's one person that owns Tiger Alpha, Tiger Beta, Sunday Bar, and also Astrid. So he's got all of those subnets. So that is the only connection, but there's no connection to Sunday Bar and Astrid or Sunday Bar and Tiger. There's just a guy who is just an absolute legend in the capital markets. I think he owns like 15 publicly listed companies. It's just nuts. So Leo has a team of devs, and I think it's like a mercenary is the wrong word, but he's helped his team of devs with Sunday Bar to get them going. He's helping us to get us going, but we've actually just got a full-time lead. So the reason I was like curious whether he was our CTO or not, because our full-time, we've just got a full-time Bittensor dev in-house now. So I guess that guy will be our full CTO or full-time dev. But yeah, I guess he just helps set stuff up. As in Leo.
No, that cleared it all up for me. I have no more confusion about anything.
Yeah.
And then, we're towards the back half of my questioning now.
Yeah.
What is something in Bittensor you could change at the snap of your fingers that you think would most help the ecosystem?
It's there's a few, but it's quite controversial. So it's actually been a really hard couple of weeks, actually, because Const has always been one of my idols. I mean, he built this whole ecosystem, and I think and I fear that relations between us have maybe been hurt, let's say. Like, he wasn't a fan of Sunday Bar at all, probably still isn't a fan. And because DSV had done an OTC deal with them, I was dragged into the whole, Sunday Bar shit. What are you doing, Siam, supporting a shit subnet? And I was like, oh my God. And stuff like that. And so, and the thing is, I do speak my mind. And one of the things I have said, and by the way, when I say this, I say this with nothing but admiration and love and respect. But I speak to a lot of institutional investors, and because that's my whole goal. I want to get more money into Bittensor. And the best thing that Satoshi Nakamoto ever did for Bitcoin was just leave. Like he was this anonymous person, and it may have hurt Bittensor to begin with, but I think in the long run it was a good thing. Now Bittensor is very different to Bitcoin, and I think, again, I can't say shit these days without it being taken out of context. But one of the things I said, and I said this to Jacob himself, I was like, when you go into a Telegram group like Subnet Summer and go, let's fuck, and then absolutely destroy a subnet to the point where it goes like zero emissions or stuff like that, there are always bigger, like, deep-pocketed people looking in this and going, holy shit, the founder has just gone in and just destroyed a subnet. Or like the other day, he sold like 1,800, I think it's 1,803 TAO worth of Ready AI in one clip, and sent emissions of Ready AI to 0% just for, one thing. And so what happens is, I spend months TAO pilling funds or family offices, etc. And I'm chatting with the big dogs or big, Billy Big Boobs or whatever. And then they go, okay, cool. We're going to look at allocating into Bittensor. And they'll be like, yeah, I'll put $1 to $5 million into Bittensor. What they then do is they'll go to their like junior intern or their due diligence tech person. Every family office or fund will have some sort of tech person. And they'll go, right, tech person, do some due diligence onto Bittensor. And these, they'll be anonymous. They'll scope out Twitter. They'll go onto the Bittensor Discord. They'll go to all of the Telegram groups, and then they'll observe for 1 or 2 months. And the things that I chat with some of these technical due diligence people, and what happens is recently I've seen an increasingly amount of funds and family offices going, yeah, we get what you're saying, Siam, but it's a bit too hectic at the moment. It's too immature an ecosystem at the moment, and that we're worried that, you know, we could just put a load of money in with DSV or with whatever, only for a whale just go, nah, fuck this shit, and just dump it. So they see that as a negative vector, if that makes sense. And so, yeah, all I was just saying to to Const is like, maybe not like have fights in subnet groups, like Telegram groups, because it scares investors. And, you know, there was one investor I know that instantly sold like $10 million worth of TAO on the spot after that whole ruckus. And so what it does is it creates uncertainty. But the thing is, like, having said all that, and I know this is going to get taken way out of context, like Bittensor wouldn't be where it is today if it wasn't for, as I said earlier, the benevolent dictator. Like it's where it is now because Const is done so much for the ecosystem. So, you know, if anyone is just seeing clips of this, please know that, you know, I'm on Const's side. Yeah, I was just trying to give some constructive feedback. That's all. So yeah, Jacob, if you're seeing this, I'm yeah, I'm cool.
If you're seeing it,
yeah.
If you're seeing a clip, please open up the video, watch the whole thing, get the full context for yourself, then make your judgment. Well,
yeah,
Siam, I have one last question for you today, and that is, you are one of the most active investors in Bittensor into subnets. What advice do you have for allocating TAO into subnets?
What, for dTAO investors or for subnet owners?
For dTAO investors, or unless you have advice for subnet owners as well, since you're subnet owner now.
Yeah. Yeah. I still don't consider myself a subnet owner. I'm more of a steward of a subnet. Yeah, like the ironic thing is I've got no, like personally, I've got no owner key emissions of 127, like, because it's the PLC. Like, it's weird. I've spent like best part of 15 years going, I'm unemployable. You know, I'd be rubbish in a job. But now all of a sudden, like, technically I'm a paid employee. Like, the only upside I have is share options in the PLC. So there's no like personal upside, you know, with 127, which I find that a weird misalignment of incentives. You know, because like being in Bittensor, you always think about incentives, aren't you? Anyway, so I guess quickly, two things. So most subnet owners are amazing at what they do, but they're just shit at marketing and eyeballs and optics. Let's just say, and there's so many basic things. Like even now, after 53 episodes of Revenue Search, we still have meetings with subnet owners, and we go, "Hey, so what do you do?" And then it's like a 20-minute waffle. I know I waffle a lot, but like you can't do a 20-minute waffling explanation of your subnet. That'll just lose people. So I've always said that, you know, they need a 10-second explanation of their subnet, a 30-second explanation of their subnet, and then like a 2-minute explanation of their subnet, all in basic mansplaining 5-year-old English, if that makes sense, and not using technical jargon and stuff like that. And so, like, most don't have that. They don't have a website that easily explains what they do. I still look at websites and go, I've invested money in this. I don't understand the what. It's weird. And just little things like being more active on, like, because subnets effectively are transparent companies. Really, it's like the evolution of a company, because everything's out there in the open. So I think a subnet should at least tweet twice a week. They should do a weekly or a bi-weekly live AMA on Twitter. And we saw this with Shaq. Like, Shaq was so busy heads down building the product that he went from doing a weekly AMA and lots of, you know, keeping people up to date to like 2 or 3 weeks with nothing. And then, you know, detail investors are very short term minded or whatnot. And so everyone started selling out. So yeah, I mean there are some basic things that subnet owners can do there, and you have maximum returns. And then for dTAO investors, I mean it's hard. Net TAO inflow has made, I think, investing in subnets more short-termism, because they're like, in theory, you should be able to like pick some really good subnets, stay in them, and then over a 1 or 2 year period, you're going to make a shitload of money. But because of net TAO inflow and all, and it's made people think, right, how's my bag going to do over the next week? And so I think there's very few subnets now that have long-term bag holders, if that makes sense.
Yeah, makes
It's
sense
hard.
to me.
I don't have much advice. Like, if you were to game theory at all, the GTO move now for a dTAO investor would be looking at the low liquidity and low priced subnets that have a good team and a good product, because then you're more likely to have multiples, as an ROI multiples. So, if there's a really good subnet with a good product, good team, and it's got like 5,000 TAO in its liquidity pool and its price is, I don't know, 0.005 TAO, like the potential of you having a 3, 4, 5x in that is markedly higher than if you're getting into something which is 0.04 TAO, and the pool is massive. Does that make sense? So,
yeah.
So
you're coming from a trader's perspective on this.
that is like, if you're just pure trading and you're looking from a GTO move there, and you can look at TAO stats right now. You can just look at, if you filter it by TAO liquidity, and then you scroll down, all of the deep filled liquidity ones, most of them, not all of them, most are like down only charts. And then when you get to near the bottom, all the charts are green, because it takes only a little bit of net TAO inflow to boost those emissions. And you're seeing many of these low liquidity ones are getting chain buying because their emissions are higher than the price. And again, this is why I think dTAO and net TAO inflow is slightly misaligned with Bittensor's core objective here.
Well, Siam, I appreciate you coming on. Always a pleasure talking, and I always love your transparency. So,
thank you. No, thank you. I just hope I don't piss many people off.